Now, the culture of women. I will tell you that this panel idea came to me as I thought about the importance of culture generally in our world and how timely. And on the heels of war, let me just say around the world and the atrocities happening, attacking cultures in Israel and Gaza, in the Ukraine, it was just a moment for me where I paused and I just said, how do we appreciate or find a way to better appreciate and understand our differences in culture, not only as women, but human to human, culture to culture, country to country. And then I will say, upon listening to some of my friends who are from very diverse cultural backgrounds, I wondered if the bias that they felt was a double whammy in a way. And what I mean by that is was there a layer of complexity I wasn't aware of, women on top of culture, culture on top of being a woman? And I wondered, was I more advantaged somehow being a white woman? Was I afforded some privilege that I took for granted and which my diverse sisters around the room had to shoulder, or they had to shoulder that and then some? And I will say, I knew what it was like to be the only woman in a room. I know that feeling and struggle to be heard. But I do not know if it's different to be the only Asian woman in a room or the only Black woman in a room, or what bias comes with being the Latina voice in a room. Is she judged differently? Does the Black female voice at the table get dimmed against the others? Does the struggle to punch through present itself then? And what bias might be at play for the brown woman that makes it her point to punch through and be heard? Could I be missing something? Is what I've been thinking about. I think I am. And after all this, are my sisters in a difficult spot? And am I setting them up for success? And I also think I'm not. So I have these blind spots and bias baked into how I think. I have preconceived notions about everything and everyone, as all of us do. I think for a living. I ponder. I wonder, and I also struggle. And I reached out to my friends and friends of my friends to say, hey, set us straight. Give me the goods and help us, at least from the voice of one. Help us be better at this. Help us be more compassionate. And so coming onto the screen in a moment, you're going to see 4 beacons of positivity, of strength, of inspiration. And this is I will just say, our next generation of Spice Girls representing the power of the diversely. And so I want to please welcome onto the screen these 4 lovely ladies so that I can properly introduce them in all their goodness. And here they are. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Now, I came to know Maribel, Dr. Maribel Lopez, in fact, through her powerhouse sister, Glenda Romero, who is the president of First Impressions within the Data and Analytics Center of Excellence. There is no more important job. And I don't know actually what kind of household these women come from, but boy, do they pack a punch, as you will see. From their 100-watt smiles to their infectious energy, where do I begin? I mean, Dr. Maribel Lopez is an inspirational speaker. She's an author. She's a professor. She's an ordained minister to top it all off. Suffice it to say, she teaches, she preaches, she ministers locally and internationally. And this is such a wild combination of skills and passions. I can't believe it. And rounding out her very rich life, Dr. Lopez is also a wife, a mom, a proud grandma. You'd never know it, and hails from the breathtaking island of Puerto Rico. And stand back because she's going to light up this screen. It's such a pleasure and welcome, Maribel.
I love that. I love you introducing me.
She begins with a laugh. And, I got to say, you're a standout for all women, full stop. But one of the many reasons that what I admire about you is what you represent for Latina women. And it's a group who, as you know, is routinely underrepresented in the most senior roles across countries and companies. And you have flown in the face of so many odds. And I just got to ask, where does this determination come from?
I mean, you read it, ordained minister. My faith, I come from a strong line of women. My mom, you never know how strong you are until all you have to be is strong. Who was this? Frida Kahlo. She reminds us. The desire for better, the knowing that there is better in the world. I am important. in spite of what anybody says. I matter, in spite of the labels, the biases, the stereotypes,
Mm,
um, and empowering others. One thing that I strive to do is to pass it on. The same way that I
mm,
found the strength, I want to pass it on. I want to continue to help women, find their way, find their power within, through questioning why do we do what we do? Because that is when you were presenting about the unconscious bias and some of the things that we can do. One of the things that I did was start questioning, why do I do this? Why do I think that?
mm.
Recreating my life, recreating who I am. And it's okay to be who we are and celebrate ourselves.
I love that. I love that. It starts at the home. I heard you say off the hop. And shout out to all the moms on the line. I know there's a few. And I love that you then picked up that torch and carried it with you and kind of warmed others. That is, its energy is contagious, as is yours. And now I just wanted to say that great things come in real small packages, right? And such is the case with my friend Sonal, who you see on the screen. But you'd be miscalculating if you assume that this tiny hero wasn't as strong as the day is long with wisdom beyond her years. Sonal and I work out together more often. I actually try to keep up with her. I'm behind her in the classes as we're working out. And I came to appreciate, let me say, her calm, her no BS approach to almost anything, and how at every turn, like what you just heard with Maribel, she's elevating women around her. She's complimenting their strength. She's talking about how great your skin looks, your accomplishments. She's saying, yes, you can. But do you really want to do that? She is so beautiful, but recognizes beauty in others, which is a whole other level of beauty to me. And in her day job, she plays with data too, and is in a CRM, is leading CRM and customer engagement at the Globe and Mail. So like finds like. She is a consummate storyteller and translator of data into insights. It's a core skill of hers. She hails from India, holds a lifetime of lessons in her hands, and I can't wait for you to meet her. Sona, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with all these women, such a power-packed house. Thank you for having me.
This is true. Yeah. And I would say, Sonal, there's, from what I calculated, call it 2 million descendants of India and Canada, right, alone, and representing a large portion, right, of our population and growing. I'll just pick on Canada for a moment. I know we've got a lot of US folks on the line as well. But there's, I will say, just a bias around Indian women, as there are any women. But I wanted to know, like, from your point of view, what biases have you faced as a brown woman in the workforce? And is it different for many other women in your view?
I think one of the most common assumptions, or the common comments that I receive is, "Oh, you speak English, you speak it really well," which is a little bit of a surprise to everybody. And I often think about that, and I go, I don't know if they would ask this to anybody else who maybe comes from Scotland or Ireland, or and has an accent. But I always get asked, and one of the things I try to educate people on is um, we study in English. That's the main medium or language of instruction. So yes, of course we speak in English. I think there should be some awareness around how you bring that up, and maybe you can say you're very articulate versus, oh, you speak English really well. So I think that's one of the most common things that I face. The other thing I think that people may not be aware of is growing up in India, the culture is so rich, so diverse, has its own customs and traditions. But one of the things, and I'm sure this is for Asians, like all Asians as well, one of the things that we learn, something that's really ingrained in us, is respecting elders, respecting people around you. It is so much a part of who we are, um, and and not questioning authority. So that translates into in the workplace. At least for me, the way it's translated is I'm generally quiet till I just based on the example that you gave as well, Lori. I'm quiet till I know the business well. I hear everybody, and then I speak. And I've got this feedback very often where I've been asked to challenge people in public versus doing it privately. Voice your opinion as much as you can. But I think over the years I mean, like you said, I have a no bullshit attitude. So my patience has gone down over the years and I do speak my mind. But initially it took me some time because I had that culture, that thing ingrained in me where, you're not supposed to challenge someone publicly, especially somebody who's been here, somebody who's older than you, somebody who's in a position of authority. But over the years, I've sort of gotten rid of that, and even when I have spoken up, I think people have been surprised, and they go, "Oh man, you have a voice." And I'm like, I do have a voice, but I tend to sometimes hold it till I understand the business, I understand the problem, and then I speak. But yeah, those are some of the biases that in general I face. Um, and obviously the accent always plays in. People always go, "Oh, what is that accent?" And then they focus on the accent versus really listening to what somebody has to say. And even for myself, when I'm at the table, I try to make sure that everybody feels included. And even if somebody, even with my own biases, like I have to sometimes slow down and understand what somebody's saying and really pay attention to what they're saying versus the accent or how they're saying it.
It's such good advice. Thank you. And a lot of learning in there. And I think sometimes we can misinterpret the what is respect in your mind and how that shows up in the room as maybe quietness or not being engaged. Like you misread the cue and really it's like a programming from a long while and you're just managing within the parameters of your culture. And I think it's incumbent upon both ends, the receiver and then the individual delivering, to make adjustments to find your way so that you can channel between you. So thank you for that. And I'm going to turn to Makisha for a moment. Now, some people just emanate warmth. It's in their energy, it's their smile, it's the subtext of their words, it's all of the above. And this is the case with Makisha Miles. And sometimes, it's tough to be warm and calm in a world of spinning plates, which she's in. And she's in that world of event planning. And then even with her family this morning, she was telling us the heels, she just came off of a crazy morning with her child. All of that combined is I came to know Makisha, in fact, through event planning because I was running an event with her. She was running it and I was trying to spin, let me just say. But I can't wait for you to hear her wisdom and her story. So welcome, Makisha.
Thank you so much, Lori. I just want to start off by saying, I was really flattered, when you came to me and invited me over to this conversation. So I truly am honored just to really be a part of this really clearly a very dynamic group of women. So first off, thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you accepted. It's our honor to have you. And I know that culture we've spoken about has what I'll call is like a generational memory. Sonal just touched on it too. And even in cases where you're second generation or third generation, the roots of culture, let's just say, kind of carry over with us. And they take, even as you take root in a new country or your family takes root in a new country. And so, Makisha, what would you say you brought with you from that generational memory from your roots in Grenada and Trinidad?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. I mean, I am first generation Canadian. I'm born to parents from the West Indies, the Caribbean. My father is from the Twin Islands of Trinidad and Tobago, and my mother is from Grenada. So first off, as a Caribbean person, we have to shout out all of the Grenadians, all of the Trinidadians, all of those who have any kind of Caribbean connection. Hello and good morning. And with that being said, I mean, that is a very big part of what I bring from growing up in a Caribbean household. It's all about, to Sonal's point, that respect, that community, that working in collaboration. Everybody essentially is your family, your cousin, your auntie, and in a way it follows you in work. So there's an expectation with the foundation that I was raised with that you are to be kind. Like kindness should sort of be expected. Helping others is what's to be expected. So you're expected to do that for others, and you expect to receive that from others. And I think that that kindness is sometimes shattered in the experiences or the biases, as you've mentioned, or those stereotypes that you're faced with. And then you're sort of thinking, how do I react in this scenario? Because that truly wasn't kind. That
Mm.
thought or that action wasn't kind and it didn't feel good to me. But it rattles that foundation. How do I respond to that without seeming to be that person? I know we'll touch on it a little bit more, but I think a lot of my foundation truly is rooted in kindness, empathy, the consideration of others and how they feel. And it really does, it's carried over in all aspects of my life, personal, work, play,
Mm.
or otherwise. And it really is, I think, a very basic trait that seems to get lost, and it's surprised when people do experience it.
Yeah, and I imagine it would be faced with a frictious situation at work or escalations where people are not behaving in that way, or even in your personal life. It's kind of like there's a bit of deprogramming that happens in the moment because it feels so unnatural. I'm reading your words, and I know I'm going to stay with you for a moment, Makisha. But whether we like it or not, or whether it is even accurate, let me just say, or not, there's a bias that comes with being a Black woman. Kim on this program's talked about it before. There's stereotypes that folks often ascribe to Black women. And so can I just put that on the table? What are they?
Oh, for sure. You know, and it might sound harsh, but a lot of these stereotypes, that Black women are not educated. We are loud, we are obnoxious, or we're incapable of achieving or accomplishing whatever it might be. And if you do accomplish something quote unquote great, it's almost like, oh wow, like it comes as a surprise versus the norm or an
Mm.
expectation that is just what it is. However, it truly is a reality that as a Black woman, we do deal with, right? And as I mentioned, that foundation of the family and culture I come from, that is where those areas where it certainly gets rattled a bit. And, I'll share a couple of my personal experiences, you know, um, just having conversations, whether it's with, other Black women, a diverse group of women. I too have also had the comment, oh, wow, you speak so well. And it's sort of, oh, is that surprising, right?
Yeah.
Or, a lot of times, especially during COVID, we've had a lot of, phone conversations and you don't often get to meet people in person. And when I have met some of, colleagues, work or otherwise in person, it's sort of, oh, and I mean, literally, it's been said, I just didn't know that you would look like that. So again, I
Mm.
pause because, in my mind, I'm not sure how to receive that, but I also do know there's a stereotype of Black women being angry or talking too much. So you think about those, and it really does allow you to pause and really be intense and how you're going to respond to this individual who does deserve a response to understand what exactly it is that they mean by that. So, you know, these are the stereotypes that we certainly do deal with, as Black women, and it's interesting for me because as anyone who knows me, I would describe myself as a pretty level-headed individual for
Okay.
the most part, and pretty jovial, in how I like to interact with others. But, let me say off the top, a lot of these stereotypes, they don't have any merit, right? People are people when all is said and done. And it is a thing as a Black woman that we certainly do pause and think about before we act, speak, or do a lot of things
Amazing.
as we come along in life.
Yeah, it's such good advice, and you'll see it. One of the comments in the chat thread had to do with when you're speaking up, it might just be you're being assertive. It's a woman being assertive, but it's out of pattern with what you expect. Or if you are speaking up, it can be seen as too assertive. And I'm going to switch gears and kind of go from Black women to Latina women, and I'll say, one of the things that I watched recently, maybe you've seen it on Netflix, is J Lo's halftime documentary, and I actually didn't go in being a big J Lo fan. I left as one. but it helped me appreciate the struggles of a Latina woman and how passion and expression, Makisha's point, can sometimes work to your detriment and be like wrongly classified as too emotional or too unpredictable or too passionate, if that's even a thing. In a world that values some level of stoicism, especially corporately, talk to us about your experience with Latina women bias. Like, what is it, Maribel, and what do you need us to know about the truth of it?
Yeah, we are leaders, not just maids, homemakers. But like you, Lori, and thank you for this. This is a really good question. I loved and love how you're bringing J-Lo to the table, and how you said you went into watching the documentary not being a fan, and then you came out being a fan. I have to say that that was me. But going into my doctoral program, going towards my doctorate, and because I have to say, and I have to be really honest about this. Women believe the lies that have been that are told, or the lies that are in our society, or the stereotypes and the biases. Women do, and for me, going into doc program and going into my research, which is Latinas Inspiring Latinas to Prevail, um, it was highlighted for me in doing my own research with my Latina culture. I'll leave it there with my Latina culture. Some of those biases, some of those stereotypes, and seeing so many how do you say this, similarities with what JLo was experiencing. Like, this is not right. And so that's all that it is, stereotype. And I came out of doing this research and knowing better for myself, knowing better about JLo, and like you became her her fan as well, for the strong woman that she is, and saying, you know what? I'm not staying silent anymore. I am not silent. I'm gonna speak up, and I'm gonna fight for what I believe, and I'm gonna keep moving forward. And for me, and that's admirable.
Yeah, and what's interesting to me, on one extreme, I'm hearing some of you say, Makisha, for Black women, for Latina women, there's this demonstrative sort of out there passion, it's visible. And then on the other end, it's perhaps like for Indian women, and we'll hear from a moment from Iris, maybe there's this quietness. And so that culturally, right, we're kind of polarized in a way, and yet damned on both ends in some cases, right? And dealing with those, how those biases show up. And so I'm going to come to you next, Iris, because several months ago, following actually an ElleExcel podcast, I got a reach out from a young woman, Iris, and I'd never met her before, and she was requesting a conversation. So I said, sure. And then the screen came on, and I was met with what I'll just say is like this elegant, unassuming, very intelligent woman. And she, at that time, which touched me, it said that ElleExcel touched her and made her feel less alone and more connected to others, and that she found her community through it. And she shared a story with me, and she took a leap and matched my vulnerability with her own, which takes a lot of courage. And in the course of getting to know this very understated, exceptional woman, I came to learn about her tremendous centeredness, her unequivocal resilience, her wisdom. And by the end of the call, I decided, without hesitation, for me, it's like, we're going to be friends. I should probably tell people before I thrust my friendship on them. But like, now I introduce you to my friend Iris, I'm happy to say. And in her day job, she manages limit management for our credit card business here at BMO. And she's the best of the best winner, which is kind of the top of the heap acknowledgement. And she is just a perennial overachiever. Outside of work, she's a proud cat mama, near and dear to my heart. She's a daughter and exceptional friend. Welcome to the screen, Iris.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. It's such a great pleasure to speak in the ElleExcel session and share my thoughts with such a brilliant woman. Thank you.
Well,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Back at you, my friend. And I wanted to ask you, I wondered if you could share with us how you came to live here in Canada. It's a neat story.
Yes. So around 5 years ago, actually, I moved to Canada from China with my cat. I have my cat with me here, actually. So
Mine's
So
crying at the
you
door.
want to meet?
All right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember at the time, like there was a big snow, and my cat just stared at the snow through the window with a wide open eyes. It's the first time in his life to see such a big snow, and it's also the first time in my life. So my kind of life starts from there.
Unbelievable. Well, my cat's crying at the door at the sight of yours, no joke. But for many immigrants, there are tales of our parents making a choice to move here. I think Makisha has that experience, and our experience of getting acclimated once there. But one of the things that struck me about you when we first met is your personal choice to immigrate alone as a single woman to a country you'd never been to before. Like, you immigrate alone as a single woman to a country you've never been before with a cat. Like, and every part of that statement to me seems like it screams courage. I told you that at the time. But I gotta ask, like, how did you do that and what did that feel like?
Well, I would say, honestly speaking, moving to a new country alone with minimal local network is difficult and scary.
Yeah.
And no one in my family at that time really supported my immigration decision. But it's just at that time I felt I was trapped and I really needed a change in my life. So here I come. And then as a newcomer, it's not easy. Every decision comes with a consequence, I would say. Although I made the immigration decision without any hesitation or regrets, but the difficulty and the challenges I had was way more than what I had expected, actually. As a woman of color, previously I prepared myself for some potential challenges ahead, especially in job search. I know that there could be some invisible walls exist, but I was still shocked when someone advised me to change my last name. Because I heard some similar story years ago, and I just can't believe it still exists today. So I remember that night after receiving the so-called name changing advice, I sat in front of my laptop, looked at my resume, and had a big cry. I didn't want to change my name because it's a heritage for me. Last name does carry a meaning in Chinese culture. But on the other side, I was also scared I may not be able to get interview opportunities due to these invisible walls. So at that time, a sense of hopelessness just began to arise. And there were moments I thought of giving up and going back to China. But fortunately, I chose to stay and hung in there for a bit longer. So I guess behind every cloud, there was a silver lining. Later, I got an interview opportunity with BMO and had the luck to be interviewed by two wonderful ladies. One of them is still with BMO today. I'm not sure if she is in this session, Carolina Louise. So if she is here, I want to take this opportunity to say, Carolina, thank you. And then I started my BMO journey. So over this settle down process, when I look back, I'm very grateful actually for the kindness and generosity I received from strangers. And what I feel most strongly from this journey is, even if we are just ordinary people, what we say and what we do can have an impact on others. In my lowest points, I received the encouragement from others, be it a coffee chat, a referral, or just a simple encouraging word. They brightened my day. So here I want to say, don't underestimate the influence you can have on others in a place where you can choose to be kind.
There's nothing I have to add. It's an amazing story. You're so courageous. I hope you can see that through the thread on the right. You're unbelievable. Wow. And I will through ElleExcel, as a group, we've explored this idea of what makes each of us remarkable. I think you can hear it and feel it on the screen. You're getting shout outs. But to you, what is it that makes you remarkable? Sonal.
This is always difficult to answer, isn't it? I think it's for all of us. Like what makes us unique and remarkable is all our journeys that we've been through, all the experiences we've had, learning from the good and the bad, making the mistakes, and I think always being open. I feel like that's something that I really feel has worked for me. Is just being open to learning new things, exploring more, asking more questions. Don't be scared to ask questions. I often find in the workplace, especially when you're a new person, when a new employee, you're a little bit hesitant, but I think that's the time you should ask a lot of questions. I feel like that's something that served me well, and has been recognized several times by all my leaders. So I believe that's what makes me remarkable.
And I could go on and on.
Oh
Thank
my
you, though.
God.
I know it's very hard to say for me too. Maribel, what makes you remarkable?
I have to echo what Soto said. You, us, right? We're unique. There's no two of you.
Mm.
So different, yet so many things really unite us and connect us as females, no, as women. And so, just do not be afraid to be yourself. One of my favorite poems by Marianne Williamson is, when you dim your light, or don't dim your light, right? Because when you shine your light, you give permission for others to do the same.
Mm.
And I think that it takes courage. Like someone wrote, yeah, the courage to
Mm.
stand out. Lori, you wrote it
Yeah,
amazing. It takes
I get
courage.
it. It sure does, right? And you have it in spades, my friend. And Makisha, what makes you remarkable?
I would say, and again, it was sort of a question I had to think about. I would say what makes me remarkable is probably my perspective on life, right?
Mm.
I truly do look at life like a book, and literally every experience is a bit of a chapter. And my
Mm.
perspective is that the chapter will begin and the chapter will end, and there'll be some highs and lows in between. So even though when, I go through those lows, I just know it won't be forever. It's not infinity. It won't
Interesting.
be forever. It's going to come to an end at some point. And there's some lessons in there somewhere. I may not know what they are at the time, but hey, I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm moving on.
Mm.
So I don't believe that I'm meant to wallow in those lows. And I just know that there is that light at the end, and then that time and that chapter
Mhm.
will come to an end until the next one. So I think that has served me well, and it certainly has served those around me well also. So remember, life is a book.
Yeah, so that's a good analogy. Iris, what makes you remarkable?
I think it's the courage to step out of my comfort zone. If I didn't choose to move to Canada, I probably will never find the true self and the purpose of my life. And the other thing I would say is persistence, especially in face of setbacks. I firmly believe quitters never win and winners never quit.
Love it. Now, sometimes we learn how to behave, let's say, in this life, or misbehave by looking around us at other women, right? And seeing what's acceptable, what's tolerated, where she pushes the edges and let's say survives. But for each of you, what did you what did you look to in life as both your yardstick for what was possible and what shaped who you are as a woman? Sonal.
I looked at my mom. She was incredibly strong. She 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 was she was married really early, and she used to live in a village. Just a quick story. In the 1960s or 70s, she decided to leave her husband. She was not happy, and she decided to go back to school. And she literally studied, and I don't think you can do this anymore. She literally went from fifth grade into university, and she had to cramp it all in 1 year. She became a teacher, and wanted to be self-sufficient. And she went into a village and she started teaching there. Just seeing that strength from somebody in the late 60s and early 70s, being able to do that and push the norms is something that I always remind myself when I think about, should I be doing this? What's somebody going to think about me? How's XYZ going to react? I always think about how strong she was to be able to do that. So my mom is my yardstick.
Oh, I love that. Maribel, how about you?
My mother, definitely my mother. Women who, women who fought. When I read our history, and women who fought for our rights, so that today I can walk the walls of a university, so that today I can vote. Women who do it every day. Oprah Winfrey was one of the first women I saw on television, and she shared her story so authentically, what she went through, and that really helped me just understand that we're not defined by what we go through, but we can write our story. I love your Makisha, your book analogy. I say life is, to me, the classroom. Life for me is the classroom, and lots of lessons. But and not but to continue to strive for what other women also did for us, and so don't take that lightly. This is why I walk the walls of the university. This is why I am the mother that I am, the wife that I am, the grandmother, the minister that I am, because I know there's one that's always watching me. I have a real cute story. In school, the students, I use my hair like this on purpose. Yes, I have curly hair, and it's okay to have curly hair. I don't have to straighten it the way I did for so many years trying to fit in. And this became a statement, and inspired other women, especially Latina women who had the hair straight, who had the daughters, and the daughters were being bullied at school and because of their hair. And so they would come to me and say, Dr. Lopez, what do you do to your hair? How do you, keep your hair? Help me help my daughter. And that's when I decided from now on, my hair is going to be curly. It's going to be like this. And I'm going to help you and your daughters. They can walk proudly with their big curly hair, just the way it is. This is, who we are, who I am. And so that keeps me going. That's what I love to do.
Yeah, you get a curling iron, you get a curling iron, you get a curling iron. Yeah, you got a lot. Makisha, as women, we often think that it is other women, right, who shape us into the strong people that we've become. And certainly we've heard that. But as you know, it can be different than that. Tell us about you.
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned, my father is of Trinidadian background, and he actually really I would say, is someone who really shaped who I am. And the reason why I say that, I had to think back, growing up, I remember my father really being the first one to verbally say to me, why can't you do this? You can actually do whatever you want in life, right?
Nice.
And I was thinking, oh, okay. As a child, right? There really are no ceilings and no limitations. And, my father really was someone who, in a way, like certainly assimilated into the Canadian culture. But I think with him being the last child of like 13 kids, he was always a bit of a stickler to challenge the status quo, think very critically in whatever scenario that you're in. And I think that mindset really intrigued me as a child. And I suppose it, got me in a lot of trouble growing up as well as a kid. But my father really did sort of plant that seed of being confident and challenging, or asking yourself, why do you think you can't do whatever it might be? And I think about a scenario even now that happens often. My father actually was someone who took the time to teach me how to shake somebody's hand. And even till this day, when I shake someone's hand, there's always, oh, wow, that you got quite a handshake on you there, Makisha. And he said it speaks a lot about who you are just in that handshake. So it's sort of those little tidbits that, those little seeds that my father did certainly plant in me that really kind of shine through in who I am today.
I like it. It's like, and also given the permission to punch through, right? You kind of
100%.
want to do it. I think when you're a kid, you're built without the idea of boundaries, and then there over time you're curtailed, and you need those little windows to punch through. So I love that. I love that they come from different places too. They're not only women. And then Iris, you and I work with such a diverse slate, let me just say, of women across multiple cultures. And in my experience working with a lot of Asian women, I've observed a few things, and I highlighted some of them in my bias up front and Women by the Numbers. But dare I call them my own biases and perceptions? But here they are. I think my experience has been they're quieter often in meetings, respectful, sometimes overly respectful of my authority and others, and sometimes backing down to the most senior person in the room. And I just wondered, does this ring true to you, number one? And can you help us understand where these cultural nuances come from?
Sure. So what you just described, I feel very related. This like back down in front of authority. Actually, I think it originates from the ancient Confucianism. It's a traditional Chinese culture, deference to authority and hierarchy. And then this may be further amplified in women. Because in traditional culture, a well-behaved woman was often tagged with a soft, quiet, and yielding image. So for most of us, at least in my generation, from our childhood, when we face the orders or words from parents and teachers, we were already conditioned to obey the orders and to not argue, even if we have a different opinion, because we know it's useless to argue. They won't listen to us. And then it's just become a habit. And when we grow up and started work, we tend to bring this habit into the work. And for the quiet, it's actually a very interesting phenomenon, because in the traditional East Asian culture, quiet actually indicates careful thoughts. It's totally different from Western culture. We are told to think well before we speak. So we tend to think through all the things and then potential questions that may come to us before we even verbalize our opinion. And in addition to that, silence in front of a superior actually is often associated with respect in the traditional culture. For example, you can see like an employee, he or she may sit very quietly in a meeting without directly challenging the opinion of the superior, because maintaining that interpersonal harmony, or like a so-called saving face, these things takes priority over expressing an opinion or being right.
Yeah. And I think there's your culture and all the things that affected you. Then the fact that you're a woman, and then you go to work.
Yeah.
Then you engage with the outer world. But it's like all the things you carry with you in your pack, like it's in you. It's like rivering through you. So you don't unwind it by thrusting your assertion upon it, or providing feedback that says, woman, you need to man up, or you need to talk more, or you need to speak up. There might be some of that, but maybe some of the answer too is, well, what are you doing? Like, what is the rest of the room doing to create the conditions for you to succeed and invite the diversity? And I'll stay with you for a moment, Iris, is that what I think a lot about, actually, given that my own team, is about our perceptions and how bias shows up at work, my own included. And when we interact with all women and women from diverse cultural backgrounds, what are we bringing with us into that conversation, as I did with Rain in my example? And how are we judging, like in those moments, critically? And I work in STEM, so I work with far fewer women than I care to admit, but many are actually Asian women. And so some of the things I hear are the things I mentioned, but I want to know what do we need to better understand and appreciate as we engage with Asian women?
Yeah, so I think a key enabler here is to show your empathy. When you interact with a person, you are actually interacting with all the history that person carries with. So understand where they are from, put yourself in their shoes, and be open to differences. I think these things will bring you a new lens to see more beautiful things in life. And if you are a people manager, there is a person in your team who works very hard, but is too shy to talk about her achievements. I would say please proactively encourage her, and then give her the recognition that she deserves. She may appear less assertive, but based on my experience, I can promise you that she can get tough things done. So next time when you doubt if that shy woman may not be able to influence or lead people, please don't forget, a good leader is first and foremost a good listener. And that shy woman may have remarkable listening skills. She can lead by action and example. So please give her a chance to try. And also the other point here I want to make is to my fellow Asian women community, and to actually to all the women who are watching our discussion. Even if you are not raised to be a leader in your upbringing, you can choose to lead and learn how to lead from now. BMO is a good company, so you can have a choice here. When an opportunity comes next time to showcase your capability, please choose to say yes, even if the initial answer in your head is no.
You're amazing. And I the thing I think about, there's things that you need us to do. And there's just a call out to the leaders in the room, the leaders of a meeting, the heads of families, the person sort of setting the table or tone of a situation is this is on us, right? This is on those people to create those conditions, invite the dialogue, stop when someone's interrupting, breathe so that there's a moment of calibration and thought in the room so that the folks have the opportunity to say something. Also to, how do I say this? Make it okay to challenge authority. Like invite that and say, listen, these are my thoughts, challenge me. I had a leader do that to me very early in my career and it changed the game. And then I'm like, oh, I got something to say. I got another thing. I had a lot to say, but I didn't have the permission to say it in that moment until she invited it. Now, poor woman, now everyone who's since followed has been like, what the heck happened? But I would say that there's something in there, right, that unlocks and invites the conversation and makes it okay, makes it safe. And so the leaders on the line, I would really, really encourage that. I've learned a lot through that. And some of it's actually triaging the conversation. Teams and virtual meetings helps because there's a queue. You have your moment to talk. You're in a meeting, people talk over one another and the quieter voices get lost. And it's incumbent upon the person in the room or people in the room to be able to triage that. And so, Makisha, can I just ask you what the common biases are that you face as a Black woman, and what do you need us to just get? And for those of us who aren't Black, just to bridge the gaps.
For sure, for sure. I mean, the reality as a Black woman, there's usually sort of a bit of an inner conflict in terms of, our words, the tone, the body language. Are we going to be understood for what we're actually saying or the perception of what we're saying? If it's in the way I choose to wear my hair, the color clothing I wear, or if I wear some really bold earrings, we think about how is that going to impact if I'm seen, respected, heard, taken seriously or not. And all of that is rooted in a lot of our experiences and that we've just had to sort of work out on our own or kind of hope society catches up at some point. So these conversations are very, very, very important. So, I would say as a Black woman, it's always better, going to someone said in the comments there, it's always better just to ask the question than to make the assumptions, And when I think about sort of bridging this gap, those who know me also know that I like to eat. So I have to bring, and I like to, use analogies. So, there is the popular dish or the national dish of Grenada, where my mom is from. It's called oil down. right? So you can Google it and kind of see what it is. But it's made up of all these different parts, different meats, fish, veggies, spices, coconut milk, and you kind of put it in a pot and you slowly steam it down. And it really becomes this amazing dish. I don't know if my mom's on, but mom, like you might have to make that on Sunday for me, as we're talking about it. But it's this really one pot of like some really good, like a good dish. So I say that to say, as a Black woman, we really are sort of the sum of all these parts that make up who we are, and to Iris's point, the history, the upbringing, all of our life experiences, those are who you are truly interacting with. So bridging that gap, I think, will begin with, being open to self-reflection, pausing, asking yourself, why am I having this thought, or why am I feeling this way? And really to approach these scenarios with really, a high level of empathy is what I would say.
Yeah, I love it. On this podcast, I tabled this idea of what I called a power pack. And this is sort of this constellation, I'll say, of support that you draw on to keep you going and thriving. From the people you surround yourself with, many of you have made reference to that, to the practitioners that you seek help from, therapists, all the like, from the habits you form, journaling as an example. So what does your power pack look like, Sonal?
My power pack is my workout group, truly, and Lori is part of it. Yay! We're a group of like 5, 6 women, and we meet 2 or 3 times a week. We work out, but it's one of those power packs that I have where you go and you can literally like vomit everything that you have in your system, like just let it out. There's no judgment. There is no, why would you do this? It's more about, hey, oh, you did this. How can
I help?
How can I help? This is my opinion. This is what I went through. And because you have a group of like 6 or 7 very different women, you get 6 or 7 different perspectives. And then you sort of say, okay, maybe I can try this, or maybe I can do this. But I think all of us need one of those power packs, those little pods, the tribes, whatever you call them, as an outlet. Because yes, social media, I know a lot of people say social media is an outlet, but they don't, social media is not going to give you a hug. So I like my little pod that gives me a hug every now and then. And of course, I have a friend who I've known since I was 3 years old. And she calls out all the bullshit. Like even if I try to hide something, she knows what's going on. So that's she's someone who always keeps me on the straight and narrow, keeps me honest. So yeah, that's my pack.
I love it. Iris.
So I like to ground myself through talking to the women I feel inspiring. And the talking can be done actually through reading, like some autobiographies like Becoming by Michelle Obama and Living History by Hillary Clinton, and watching documentaries. Halftime, like Lori mentioned in the beginning of this session, is a very good one. And then there is another one about Taylor Swift, Miss Americana, or having a real conversation with these women in my life, like the one with Lori. That's why I outreach Lori. And yeah, the other thing I do to get recharged is running. I usually run in the early morning. So this gives me an opportunity to hear the birds singing. And when the weather is good, I can see sunrise. The picture is so beautiful, and I feel so blessed to start my day from running.
Amazing. Maribel, your power pack.
My community, my families. You mentioned my powerhouse sister. Thank you so much. I know she's watching. I hope so. And so my sisters, my family, your circle. One thing that I learned that you know, in Spanish we have this saying, "Dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. That just means tell me who you're with and I tell you who you are. And
Ah,
so tell me who surrounds you. So that community that supports you, but the ones that keep it real, like Sonal said, you need the ones who suffer, but you need the ones who thrive. So I think your tribe, that community who you surround yourself with, that's my power pack. I'm very much fueled also by the people that surrounds me, what is needed in my environment, what I can do as an individual
mhm.
and a member of the society. And so yeah, that's my pack.
Oh, totally. I love that quote. Tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are. Love it. Makisha, what's in your power pack?
I thought about if I were to describe my power pack in one word, well, maybe two, I would say full transparency. If I can't be me and you can't be you, we need to talk about this, right? Because that dynamic is very important, so that we can feed each other, right? It's like a two-way street. So,
Mm.
my intimate circle of friends, it's all about full transparency, regardless of where we are in life. The other thing I would say is laughter is also something that's very fueling for me too. And then just sort of in terms of a bit of things I do is, every morning I do listen to the same meditation. It's about 13 minutes, but it really, like to your point, Lori, about the things that are in your mind can be so
Mhm.
negative, but you need to program your mind with those positive affirmations. So even when you're not feeling great or you're in a negative vibe, those things are programmed because you do it
Yeah.
every day in your mind, right? And then the last thing is, I really love gospel music. So that's something that, when everybody's gone, I'm ready to kick off my day. I'll throw on some Fred Hammond or some Kirk Franklin, and I'll really pump it in the house. And that really kind of gets my spirits up. And, it's a really great start to kick off my day.
Oh, I got you in a Vulcan mind melt. Like I'm just piping in to all you got, all you're giving back. I love it. All right. So I just finally, I would say for women to excel, broadly speaking, what do we need to start doing and what do we need to stop doing? Sonal.
Stop perfectionism. I think it's a subjective concept, and we what's perfect for me is very different from what's perfect for you. So I think we all need to give that up, and we need to start taking more risks. I think women really need to take more risks.
Love it. Iris, what do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing?
So start to have more self-trust and stop self-sabotage. I really hope each woman who are watching this episode can say a word to yourself. You are good enough.
I love it. Maribel, what do we need to start and stop?
Start believing in yourself, and yes, stop the self-sabotaging, stop hurting yourself. And then I want to say also, stop hurting other women, which was a big ol' aha moment for me in my research, was seeing that your number one person that can be oppressing you at times is other women. So let's start supporting each other and start and other women, collaborating, cooperating. Together we are better.
We sure are. I think you're feeling that on the line too. Everybody's saying it's the power of community. Makisha, tell us, start and stop.
Honestly, it's very simple. What I would say is we certainly just need to extend a lot more grace to ourselves. And it's okay. What you can do, what you can't do, what there's time for, there isn't time for. Be graceful to yourself. It's okay. And really just be kind to yourself. It'll make a world of a difference.
This is a group that'll lift you up, and what a wild way to go into a weekend. You've heard about the power of community. You've heard that we're drawing on others. to get some of that fuel to reframe some of our thoughts in an effort to build us up. I think what I took away from this is like just lessons of the do-betters of how we can show up at work and at life with a better layer of appreciation to make room for the diverse voices in the room, both culturally as well as just from male versus female. So I know that it took, and for many of you, I had a lot of conversations in the background. It took so much courage to come on the screen and to be willing to share and to recognize that the power of your words shapes things for others. Like that is a big deal. But it starts because you were courageous enough to show up and willing enough to share your pearls of wisdom. Your voices of one are like a voice of many, and I think you could feel that on the screen. So just thank you. And we're going to transition from kind of exterior and internal wellness to a whole other way of getting well. And at this point, I'm going to go off the screen and transition.